Right. Okay. Are we holding on top of Chafei 25? Okay. 25a. Thank Hashem. We're able to learn Torah every day. And the schus of our learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately.
Amen.
This. Okay, so it starts like this. Sabi de Nezunya. These are elders of the city called Nezunya, somewhere in Bavel, in Babylonia, right? They didn't show up to Rav Chisda's drasha. Chisda gave a speech, a shir, and these elders didn't show up. Amar Leila Rav Hamnuna. So Rav Chisda says to Rav Hamnuna, Zil Inhu. Go and tell them they should hide themselves, which is an expression of that they're excommunicated. That's an expression that's used for sages. So he went and he told them, my time doesn't sound like he told them what he was supposed to. He asked them a question. He said, how come you didn't come to the shir, to Rav Chisda's drasha? They said, what should we come for? We asked him a question and he didn't answer us. So what are we going to gain from the shir? He doesn't know the answers. So he said to him, did you ask me anything that I didn't answer? I guess that means that if you would ask me and I can't answer it, then if you ask me, I could answer it. For sure, if you asked Rav Chisda, he could answer it. I guess Rav Hamnuna was like a student of Rav Chisda. That's what it looks like. Rav Hamnuna is a student of Rav. Rav Chisda is a student of Rav, or Rav Hamnuna is a student of Rav? Rav Hamnuna is a student of Rav. Chisda is also a student of Rav. No? Rav Hamnuna and Rav Chisda are probably students of Rav. Rav Chisda, I thought, was like even a relative, like a son-in-law or some sort of Rav. No, Rav Chisda was a son-in-law of Rav Anan Barava, who was a son-in-law of Rav. He was like a grandson of. Anyway, okay. Whatever the case is, he says, "Did you ask me anything that I didn't answer?" So they said, "Okay, we'll give you a shot. We'll ask you a question. Let's see if you can get this one right, and then we'll see if we'll take it from there." Eved shesarsu rabba bebeitzim mahu. Let's say there's a slave that the master castrates the slave in the he severs the testicles. Okay, so is that considered mumsha begali dama yoylai? Is that considered? You know that a non-Jewish slave goes free if he is injured on a limb that doesn't grow back, but it has to be also something that's exposed. So is this considered exposed or is it not considered exposed? Okay. Let's see. So it goes like this. He doesn't know the answer. Amrullah, they said to him, Ashmecha, what's your name? Amrullah, Hamnuna. He says, my name is Hamnuna. Amrullah, lav Hamnuna, ela Karnuna. You shouldn't be called Hamnuna, you should be called Karnuna. Karnuna means like the marketplace. You're not a real sage, you're just a peddler. Okay. We ask him a question and then they make fun of his name. Also, look at me there, Rav Chisda. So he comes back to Rav Chisda. He tells him what happened. Amalei, Rav Chisda tells him, they asked you a Mishnah. It's actually, Masnisa means a brisa. They asked you a brisa. The Tanan, because it was taught in a Mishnah, and there's a brisa that's on this Mishnah. The Mishnah says, there's 24 limbs on a person that cannot have this type of tzaras, which is called michya, which means that there's a healthy spot of flesh within the surrounding tzaras. You see, a tzaras is a spot of leprosy. So it's a discoloration of white. Hey, wow. So, in order for it to be considered called mukhlat, that means that it's definitely tameh. So it needs to have either two white hairs in it, or it needs to spread. One of the ways that it is also that it has a healthy spot of flesh inside the surrounding tzaras. It's called michya. The only thing is that you have to be able to see this all together. So on certain parts of the body, like on the fingers, you have to turn it. You have to turn the finger to see every side of it. You can't see the whole everything all together. So anything that's like that you have to turn to be able to see. You have to look around it. You can't see the whole thing in one spot, in one shot. You can't see the whole spot in one shot. So then that's not counted. So it says like this: these tips of limbs, they can't have this type of leprosy. What are these parts of the body? Fingers and the toes. Rashi is Naim, the tips of the ears. Probably that means all along the edge, I think. I don't know. And Reisha Chaitam, the tip of the nose. Reisha Gvia would be the male organ. Rashi Dadim Shabisha, and the tips of the breast of a woman. And Rabbi Yudaimer Afbish, Rabbi Yudah says also on a man. It's also counted, even though a man would be more flat. But nevertheless, he says that's enough. It's to make it that you can't see the whole tzaras in one shot. B'tani Allah. Okay, so far we didn't get anywhere, but B'tani Allah. But it was taught on this Mishnah. We have a brisa that was talking about tzaras. The brisa adds in that the slave goes free if the master injures one of these areas, because that's considered the tip of a limb. Rabbi says Afasiris also if he castrates him. We have to see what that means. But if that's the case, then it could be that would be an answer to the question of Sabe din Nisunya. Benasi says also the tongue. The tongue also is considered a limb that has a tip on it. And so that would be two things. First of all, there would be tzaras. There wouldn't be tzaras there. And second of all, there's the slave would, yes, go free if the master cut off the tongue. Amar Mar. So Rav Chisda continues, and he says, Rebbe Yomer, the master taught. The Rebbe says, Afasiris, also if the master castrates the slave, Siris Demai, how was he castrated? Ilema Siris the Gid, if you say that he cut the actual organ, Ainukvia, that we already mentioned, that's one of the 24. Elav Siris debates must mean that he cut the testicles, and that would be the answer to the question that they asked, that the slave goes free. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I think it's 24 without the women. And the fetus 20. Right. Yeah, I think it's 24 without the women. Because the first opinion holds that it's for the men without the, right? So it's 24 on a man, I guess that's what it means. Yeah, does that make sense? Is there a comment there that explains that? You have the same command. I need one person with an art scroll, one person with the Quran to give me the comments. They said by one of the Bali Ataisvas, the Ria Zakin, he had one student that knew. He had 60 students. Each one knew one Masechta. So when he would give a shir, each one would say if it fits with his Masechta. Okay. So where are we holding over here? We say Rabbi Yomer. Rebbe says Afasiris. Seems like there's a machlekes here between Rebbe and Ben Azai. If a slave goes free, if the master cuts off the slave's tongue, the slave goes free by any tips of the limbs, like the fingers or something. So what about the tongue? So Rebbe said the slave goes free if he's castrated, and Ben Azai says also with the tongue. Sounds like Rebbe doesn't agree with the tongue. Rebbe Lashon Lai. Rebbe says that if the master cuts off the tongue, the slave doesn't go free. But one second, there's a contradiction to this. When someone was sprinkling the water of the paraduma on someone that was contaminated, and Nazar went on the person's mouth. Rebbe says that's acceptable. The Chum say it's not acceptable. My laval shine must mean that it went onto his tongue. Now, the sprinkling needs to go on to the person on the revealed part of the person, on the open part of the person. Now, the question is the tongue considered an open part or is it considered a closed part? Depends if he's a nose breather or a mouth breather. So it says, see, Rebbe says that the tongue is considered an open part. So why did Rebbe say that the slave doesn't go free if the master cuts off the tongue? It says lo yal svasa. That price is talking about which part of the mouth did it touch? It touched his lips. Al svasa pshita, the lips, of course, is going to be open. Where it says, well, that's not necessarily so, because ma'adatim is imna dechalim svasa. Sometimes the person seals his lips tight. And Kamash Malan comes to teach us that we don't follow that, even though sometimes maybe he does, but that's not considered the normal manner, and it's considered exposed. But Tanya l'shaynai, but we have a brisa that says that Rebbe says that if it touches his tongue, it's considered that he sprinkled the water. I didn't realize that it needs to actually touch the person. I thought the sprinkling was just to sprinkle towards the person. The sprinkling of the blood on Yom Kippur, it didn't need to touch to make it onto the pareches or something. It was towards, wasn't it? I don't know. This is sprinkling of the paraduma. Va'itanya was also taught in a brisa. If we're talking about the blemishes on a bachar, on a firstborn animal. See, the firstborn animal is given to the Kohen and it's a sacrifice. But if there's a blemish on it, then the Kohen can eat it without bringing it as a sacrifice. So what's considered a blemish? So one of the blemishes is if the tongue was taken out, or the majority of the tongue. Well, if that's the case, and that has to be an open blemish. It can't be a hidden blemish. So Rebbe and Rebbe says that it's talking about not the actual tongue, it's the part of it's even the majority of the tongue that's hanging. What's the piece under the tongue called? The one that connects. Dr. Stein is here, but okay, whatever it's called. I know sometimes by the kids it's too attached too much. They have to cut it. Tongue tie. But I forgot what it's called. Anyway, it's talking about here. You're gonna look it up. It's talking about here the part that's hanging, that's not attached, right? The Rebbe says the part that's not attached, and that sounds to be like an open part of the body. Rather, you know what's happening here? Rebbe says that if you castrate the slave goes free, and Ben Azai comes to add also the tongue. What really is going on is Rebbe says castrating and the tongue, and Ben Azai is saying only the tongue. What's it called? Oh, I didn't know that. Lingual frenulum. Lingual frenulum. I didn't know that word. I thought it was something else. Okay. Too fancy. Medical school. So the problem is that that's not the expression that we had in the Brisa. The Brisa says, Ben Azai says, Afalashon. 1 second. How does this go? El Rebbe Yomer Siris V'lei Mibai Lashon. Benazir Melashon Aval Siris Light. Benazir would say only the tongue would set the slave free, but not if he's castrated. The Gemara says, "My af." So why do you say also? Also means that he's agreeing to Rebbe plus. And now we're saying that he's arguing on Rebbe and he's only saying the tongue. The Gemara answers Akamaisa. Really, what Benazir is saying is that there's 24 limbs. Benazir is saying also the tongue. And what he means to say is not if the slave is castrated. So Nekadma de Benazai Beresha. You could only do that if you would put Benazai before Rebbe. You would say 24. Benazai says also the tongue. And then Rebbe would say not only the tongue, but also if he's castrated. That's the way it would work if you wanted to write it like this. But you didn't do that. You wrote Rebbe first, which says castrated. And then you put Benazai, who disagrees with Rebbe, and Benazai says also the tongue. That sounds like he's agreeing to Rebbe. So the Gemara says, Tana Shama de Rebbe Bekava. What really happened was the Tana heard Rebbe's view and he taught it. Shamal de Benazai, then he heard Benazai's view with Tani and he taught it. The only thing is, so why didn't he adjust and put Benazai before Rebbe to redo the Mishnah? It says a Mishnah you don't want to change the Mishnah. The reason is because this was memorized. And when the Mishnah is memorized, people remember, like the song, they remember how it goes. If you try to adjust it later, you can't really adjust. You can add on a stanza at the end, but you can't add in a stanza in the middle. So since Rebbe was already memorized by the students first, so he didn't want to adjust it and put a Ben Azai before Rebbe, he just tacked it on the end. Yeah, that's interesting. Amar Ula. Ben Azai is older than Rebbe. Ben Azai is a friend of Rabbi Akiva. Rebbe is not even in the days of Rabbi Akiva's students. Rebbe is in the days of students of Rabbi Akiva. Like, for example, he was a friend of Rabbi Lazar bar Shimon, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai's son. He's a friend of Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yossi's son, Shmuel. Okay. Amar Ula was our traveler, brings halachas, and he says, Hakal Maidim, everyone would agree, Belashin regarding the tongue, Linyan Tuma, the Galiyat al Sheretz. Now, this is a rule over here that if a Sheretz touches a person, the person becomes Tameh, but only if it touches the person on an exposed part of his body. If the Sheretz would touch his armpit or something like that, or folds in the fat of or something like that, then he won't become Tameh. I don't know how it got in there without touching the open parts, but somehow it did. Then it wouldn't make him tummy. It has to be touching an exposed part of the body. So let's say it touches the tongue. So Ula says, everyone agrees that the tongue is considered exposed. My timer, what's the reason? It says that he touches him. And the Eberster says, the Torah says, this is something that could be touched. Okay. Ula goes on. Linyan Tvila, when it comes to immersion in the mikveh, kitam and dami. It's not considered like it's exposed. The tongue, the water does not need to go on the tongue. My timer, what's the reason? Barachatz b'sari b'mayim. It says you wash the flesh in the water. Just like the flesh is only the outside. So to everything that's outside, you don't have to open your mouth in the mikveh, right? The water, you don't have to open your eyes. The water covers the body. It doesn't have to go inside the mouth. So what is the machlekes alin has only regarding the sprinkling of water of the paraduma? Rebbe compares it to tuma, which means that just like it's exposed regarding tuma, that if a sheretz touches the tongue, that's considered an open part of the body. So too, if the water of the paraduma goes onto the tongue, it's considered exposed and it's effective. And the Rabbanan compare it to immersion. Regarding immersion, the tongue is considered not exposed, which means if the water of the paraduma goes onto the tongue, it's not considered effective. But Tarvaya B'Haikrak Mifligan, both of them are explaining the following pasuk. They're arguing about this pasuk. The pasuk says, "V'hisa tar alatam." that the pure person sprinkles the water on the impure person. And now Rebbe holds Behiza Tarla Tame B'Yom Shlishi B'Yom Shvi B'Chitai. B'Chitai means and he's cleansed or purified. He says that the pure person sprinkles the blood on the impure person on the third day and on the seventh day, and he's purified. Now, the way Rebbe reads this is that you sprinkle it on a place that would make him tamei. Behiza Tarla Tame B'Chitai. What part would make him tamei? The tongue would make him tamei, and he's cleansed. That means that the sprinkling could go on any place that would have made him tummy, which was like a sheretz. The sheretz would touch the tongue, it would make him tummy. So the sprinkling could also go on that. Rabbanan Sabri, the Rabbanan say v'chite b'yamashvi v'chibis b'gad v'rachatz b'mayim. The Rabbanan say different. They say that he's cleansed, and on the seventh day he washes his clothes, and he launders his clothes, and he washes in water. Now, what does that mean when he washes in water? Just like washing in water, the tongue is not considered exposed. Considered inside. The water doesn't need to go around the tongue. So too, when it comes to the cleansing of the water, it's not supposed to go on the tongue. It's supposed to go on the exposed parts of the body. The question is, the tongue, is it compared to becoming tamei, which means that it's exposed? Is the tongue compared to becoming tahar, which means that it's concealed? And in the verse, you can pull it to backwards, you can pull it forwards, and you'll have Rebbe's opinion, and you'll have the Rabbanan's opinion. Mara says, "Rabbanan namin idmayla tama." Why don't the rabbis compare it to tama, to the impurity? In impurity, it's considered exposed. So it says tara mitara, habalei melaf. We want to learn purity from purity, but don't want to learn purity from impurity, right? The paraduma is person becoming pure, and the mikveh is how the person becomes pure. So we compare both of those purities together, and both of them are considered, the tongue is considered concealed. Yeah. It's funny, it's a whole daf, a whole lamed just about the tongue. But I wish it was daf lamed. Wait, I could remember it. But it's daf chafeh, I don't remember. He opened each eye separately. Separate from this, whether we're supposed to do it or not. What are you saying? He opened his eyes? Oh, in the mikveh. Oh, I don't know that. I'm not familiar with that. Yitzi Kasowitz said. He's saying that the Baal Shem Tov opened his eyes in the mikveh. I think he was going in a lake. He wanted to see what's going on underneath. I don't want to belittle anything, but it's not necessary to open your eyes in the water. You're supposed to go in a relaxed manner. What do they say for the women? They go like as if someone was like kneading dough. I think that's the expression, which means that nothing is like closed up, like not squeezing anything tight, just like just immersed like that. Okay, well, Rabbanan compare Tara to Tara. Rebbe nidmayel tefillah. Why doesn't Rebbe compare it to immersion in the mikveh? It says v'chibas begad of hifsek inyan, because if you look at the verse, it says between the cleansing of the water and going to the mikveh, it says that he washes his clothes. So Rebbe says that that's considered a division in the pasuk, and therefore you don't learn the tongue from the mikveh to the sprinkling of the water. Gemara has a question. Vesava Rebbe Linyan Tefillah Ketamandami. Rebbe says that what's inside the mouth, making it more vague now. What's inside the mouth is considered that it's concealed. Want to comment on that little piece? Okay. V'Amar Ravin, Amar Ravada, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Ravin says in the name of Ravada, name of Rabbi Yitzchak, Ma'aseh b'shifcha shel beis Rebbe. There's a story of the maidservant in the house of Rebbe. Who was the lady that like knew a lot of words? The sages would always ask her, "What does this mean? What does that mean?" That was Amasa, the beis Rebbe. Here it's Shifcha Shel Beis Rebbe. In translation, it's the same, the maidservant. But let's see.
Rebbe's house. That sages would come in the house.
The maidservant.
I thought it was more than his maidservant. I think it was like all his slaves were well versed because of his level.
We have a Gemara somewhere where the I think it was a Gemara Megillah that they learned a bunch of different words, what it meant from this lady and what this maid in the house of Rebbe. Anyway, story of the Shifcha in the house of Rebbe Shetavla. She went to the mikveh, but also, and she came up from the mikveh. Why was she going to the mikveh? Do Shifcha Kananis go to the mikveh for Nida?
She was going to be in the sky.
Here has a maidservant.
I know, a maidservant. She's a non-Jewish maidservant, I guess. And she's going, right? That's what I'm assuming. That's Shifcha. Does a Shifcha mean a cleaning lady, or does a Shifcha mean an actual maid? I think it means an actual maid, an actual, a slave.
So far, everything that I've seen maidservant, it refers to
A slave.
A Hebrew woman slave.
No.
There's it's a non-slave. It says slave.
Oh, that's because it was talking about the halacha. But here it's the story. So she went to the mikveh. I guess, look, a slave has to keep all the mitzvahs that a woman has to keep. So she would go to the mikveh for Nida. I never realized that.
Jewish women are not allowed to be slaves.
This is a non-Jewish woman. A non-Jewish woman has to keep the mitzvahs. Apparently they do. That's what I'm surprised about. Apparently they go to the mikveh for Nida.
The previous episode that we were talking about, the cutting of the frenulum with the castration, this was a Jewish evid or
no, a non-Jewish evid goes free with one of those limbs. Anyway, she comes out of the mikveh and she had a bone between her teeth. She had this. This is more common popcorn. She had a piece of popcorn in the tooth. It gets stuck over there. You can't get it out. So it's Rebbe said she has to go back to the mikveh. Rebbe said that you don't need the water to go around the tongue. Are you telling me it needs to go around the teeth? There was a bone over there. The Gemara answers need to be a smayim lebeina and makam be a smayim binan. I know you don't need the water to go in, but you need the water to be able to go in, even though it doesn't need to go in. It needs to be fit for the water to go in. It means the mouth needs to be perfectly clean, even though you don't open your mouth in the water, but you have to brush your teeth and floss your teeth before you go into the water. Because Reb Zera, so like Reb Zera says, but Reb Zera says that anything, it was talking about the size of the biggest vessel that could be used for a mincha. So they say, how much could you give? You could give the biggest vessel was 60 sa, I think. 60 sa. Anyway, if you did put more in there, then you wouldn't be able to mix it. But you don't have to mix it. If you don't mix it, it's still kosher. You have to mix the flour and the oil. If you mix it, if you don't mix it, it's still kosher. It says, yeah, it's kosher because you're able to. But if you're not able to, then it's a problem. Okay. Now the Gemara goes back to discuss this, what we were talking about, the slave being castrated. It says, Ketanai, that's actually a machlekes tanaim. The pasuk says, these are blemishes in an animal, in a carbon. It says kulam bebeitzim. All of those is bruised or crushed or torn or cut. All of these, according to Rabbi Yehuda, are in the testicles. Those are blemishes that would take place in the testicles. The beitzim ulay begid, the Gemara asked, only in the testicles, but not in the male organ. If it's cut, it's not considered that he has a blemish. Ela kulanaf bebeim bebeitzim. Rabbi Yehuda says that of course they're in the male organ, but they're also in the testicles. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov kulam begid. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov says no, it's only in the male organ where if it's crushed or torn or cut. Rabbi Yossi Aimer marach v'kasas af beitzim. Rabbi Yossi says that crushed and bruised is in the testicles, not the bakaras, but cut and torn. That's talking about begidin bebeitim lai. That's talking about in the male organ. Okay. What do we get from this last piece? Does this tell us about if the slave goes free? So we answered that already from Rebbe. Now we're going back and saying that it has a earlier machlekes, it's an earlier source.
Is there a reason behind going through with these injuries to the private parts or the tongue?
It says that he goes free if the master injures him, he goes free.
But these specific injuries, I mean, it's interesting because they're related, and that's why he asked before, is this a Jewish slave? Now, when you think of a Jew, there's the major avera that is going to be Lashon Hara or Arias. And Lashon Hara, if you cut the frenulum, boy, that tongue can go free. It's the opposite of being tongue-tied. And if you
wasn't actually cutting the frenulum, it was cutting the tongue on the part that's not attached to the frenulum. The open part. He didn't say that he was cutting actually the frenulum. There was two opinions over there.
Said the tongue's
no, I was just saying that there's a part of the tongue that's attached,
that's
and then there's a part that's hanging. So Rebbe says the part that's hanging, majority of that is already considered a mum.
Yeah. It's very similar machlokas here to castrations. Is it in the testicular part or is it in the organ part?
Right.
But I'm just saying that it just seems that they're both associated by Yid with major avenues of averas, and here you're blocking those avenues, or essentially not blocking him, but making him even more, well, whatever with the Eved Kanani, that it just sounds like there should be a reason involved here why he's going free.
Yeah, I don't know, because the same thing would apply to any of the fingers or toes.
Well, we said that before, but we're specifically bringing it's almost like the claw or prox. These are two specifics. I don't know, it's just
okay.
The
Gemara now says, we have a new Mishnah. The Gemara says, Behimagasa niknas b'masira. A large animal, how do you acquire? We're talking about acquisitions here, right? We're going to acquiring a woman, acquiring a slave, acquiring, now it's acquiring an animal, then we're going to do acquiring property. But Behimagasa niknas b'masira. A large animal is acquired with handing over the reins. You'd say, like handing over the keys. Say, this is handing over the reins. You'd give the string or the whatever it is. But hadaka, if it's a small animal, bagba, then you hand over the animal and the person lifts it up. Divrei Meir, that's your mayor's words. Basically, mashicha, pulling the animal, is not acceptable here. And Divrei Meir Rabbi Eliezer, that's the words of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Eliezer. It's a little odd. I would like it to say Rabbi Eliezer, but it doesn't say that. I have Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer was not the contemporary of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Eliezer was. Anyway, the Chacham say that a small animal could be pulled. What about the large animal? Doesn't say. Okay, let's see in the Gemara. Darash Rav b'Kimchunya. Rav taught in Kimchunya. That must be a place.
Small domesticated or kosher animals included is goats and sheep, which aren't so small.
They're smallish.
It's small enough to pick up.
Yeah, it's like a dog size.
Cow you need like a lift.
But you always see the shepherd don't pick up the goat.
But the goat could be like 100 pounds.
There was this Jewish video of this. Did you ever see this no kosher meat?
No.
Oh, it was very funny. You know, one of them was this scene where this guy was on the phone call with the shidduch, the shadchan. He was also on the same. It was like back and forth on the phone. He was trying to buy a paraduma, and it's very funny. He push like hold, and take the other call. He was talking to the wrong one, and he was, it was hilarious. Do you remember that? Did you see that? My kids liked it. So funny. Okay, so in there, it was talking about, yeah, I'll come in with my car. So they said, oh, this won't fit. She won't fit in the car. Anyway, so you need a truck. Okay. Behema gasa niknas b'mashicha. Rav taught that a large animal you can pull it. Well, okay, and that's going to be the acquisition. Ashkechinu Shmuel talmidei de Rav. Shmuel found the students of Rav. Amalahu, Shmuel tells the students of Rav. Miyam Rav behema gasa niknas b'mashicha. The Rav say that. Banan b'masiratanan. We learned in the Mishnah that if you want to acquire a large animal, you have to give it over with the reins. You don't pull it, you just pass the reins over. That's the kinyan. Rav Nami Masiram, and Rav even himself said that that's how it works. Did Rav retract from that teaching? And Rav now says that you have to pull it. Udamar ki haitana says that he was following a different opinion. The Tanya was taught in a brayso of Chacham Maimrim. Chacham says zuvzu nichnas b'mashicha. Both a small animal and a large animal are pulled. Reb Shimon Aimer zuvzu bagbar. Reb Shimon says both this and this you have to lift up. I don't know how you lift up a large animal, but that's what Reb Shimon says. Okay, Maskefla Reb Yosef Elimata Pil or Reb Shimon b'mayikna. According to Reb Shimon, you have to lift it up. How do you lift up an elephant? Amarle Abaya b'chalipin. Abaya says, well, you can't lift the elephant. So what you're going to do is you're going to do chalipin. You're going to do an exchange. I'll give you this cloth. You give me the elephant. That would be the kinyan for an elephant. Iname b'sachar smekayma, or you can rent the land that the elephant is on. And with that rental, you'll acquire also, because you can acquire personalty together with realty. So if you're acquiring the realty, then what's on it will acquire. Reb Zeir says maybe Arba Kalim Amani from Tachstragla. What you do is you bring 4 vessels and you let it like go up on it, stand on it. Now, what that would mean is that because it goes onto your vessels, you're acquiring because it's in your vessels. But the problem is, Shamet Mina, that's going to tell us, there's a whole discussion in Masechta Baba Basra. If you have bags or barrels or buckets that you bring into the location of the seller, and the seller puts his grain into those, we had this in Gittin, I think.
Yeah, we had it with the plants on the stand.
Yeah. Something maybe.
It depended if it was on the ground or.
We were talking about if he puts the get into her bags, but she's in her house. Do we say the bags are nullified to the house, and now it's really still in his house, and it's not considered in his bags? Anyway, this is a discussion about a seller that puts the grain into the containers of the purchaser. Do we say that it's already the purchaser's because it's in his containers, or do we say that no, it's in the house of the seller? It's not the purchaser. Those containers are nothing in the house. Right? If it would be on the Rosh Hashanah, then fine. But if it's in his house, the Gemara says, yeah, what are we dealing with? Simta. We're dealing with that we're on an area near the Rosh Hashanah. It's not in the house of the seller, and that's why these vessels are going to work. Inami bechavilis maris, or we can say that it's talking about that he made it walk up these like sticks, logs. He made it walk up 3 tvachim, so then you raised it off the ground 3 tvachim. That would be counted. Taisvus over here says that you can make the elephant jump by lifting up some sort of food in front of it that's going to eat it. If you hold it up high, then maybe it will jump. This was that whole controversy with there was a Rabbi Slifkin who wrote these books about animals called it Zoo Torah. He has like a website, Zoo Torah. Anyway, he commented that Taisus never saw an elephant, and that's why he thinks that an elephant can jump. And all the rabbis got upset with him. He said, "What do you think? Taisus only knows elephants from the zoo. Taisus knows elephants from the Torah. So if Taisus says it, then it was like a whole discussion. Like his comment back was, if you wanted to install Windows on your computer, would you ask Rabbeinu Tam? That was his. Anyway, it became like this great controversy. Everyone was okay.
Well, feeding the animal make you like the owner, since
No.
Shabbos weren't allowed to.
Oh, I hear what you're saying. That's interesting. Showing ownership is usually working with it or something. I don't know if feeding it would show ownership. I'm not sure. That's like a detail you have to look up. Could be that you're violating Shabbos and you're feeding, it doesn't, just because it's a violation of Shabbos doesn't mean that you're the owner. The only person that's allowed to feed those animals is the owner. But when you go and feed the animals, it doesn't mean that you just acquired it. It could mean you're violating Shabbos. Right? Yeah. You follow? It doesn't.
The leniency would be like, oh, he owns it because
Right. Right. Yeah, people don't know that you're not supposed to feed the birds on Shabbos. They think by Tashlach, which is coming up, they think you're supposed to feed the fish. It's a problem, actually. I think feed the birds or the fish on Shabbos. We used to always,
Those
think
in the
like
old days.
in old days we would
They've
throw
been telling us
breadcrumbs.
for years we can't bring bread. So once in a while you see somebody bring it.
Yeah.
But you're right. When I was a kid, everyone brought breadcrumbs.
Right.
I mean, managed like almost everybody.
It seems like the halach has changed, or we became more knowledgeable. Yeah. On Shabbos, feeding on Shabbos. No, I'm not on Shabbos. You're allowed to. Oh, on Rosh Hashanah, you're not supposed to feed. Yeah, because it's Yom Tov.
By the way, that caused a major ecological problem here years ago when the whitefly was killing all the hedges. Remember the hedges started dying around people's houses?
Oh,
Because
really?
of these little whiteflies. Because the whiteflies, I mean, this one was told, normally are eaten by when they're hatching in the water, the fish eat them. But so many people were bringing breads to the canal that the fish were not eating the whiteflies. Whiteflies proliferated. They start killing the hedges. So I don't know if that's true,
Wow.
but so I was told, don't feed the fishes. Fish.
Wow, that's so interesting. Okay. Nechasim, do you remember listening to the refrigerator before you could open it? You remember, like we would
I
wait
remember
for
being told that. Yeah.
Things switched. Halacha.
Now we don't have to.
Right.
You put on Sabbath mode.
Oh, that's a different issue. Shabbos mode, that was.
You
there was one thing about the
before
light.
Sabbath
Yeah,
mode.
so there was a light issue always.
So
But
you
they
take,
used to
you
always
unscrew
take
it or take off the
But we
light.
would wait for the motor to go on before we opened it because we felt if we opened it, we'd be turning on the motor because it has
Just let the hot air in.
right. And then lately, the last 20 years, we didn't. Okay, the evolution of halach. Nechasim sheishna machrayas. This is today's daf.
Book.
The possessions that have achrayas, which is talking about land. What does it mean? It has achrayas. That means that there's responsibility on. It gives guarantee to lenders. That's what it means. It gives a guarantee to a lender that you're able to collect back from this property. It means realty. Realty has that ability. So any realty, it's a fancy word for realty, is acquired with money, documents, and with showing ownership. What about personality? That has to be pulled. Personality could be acquired on realty if you do the acquisition of the realty, right? When you buy a house and you find out that there's a safe in there full of diamonds, did you acquire that? Yeah, you acquired it because you bought it, came together with your house. And you can also, usually you don't swear, if someone denies half the claim, so there's something called he has to make a shua, has to make an oath. But you don't make an oath on land. It's only if it's real, if it's personality. You owe me $100 and I only owe you 50. But once you have an oath like that, you can extend it over to realty as well. It's called Gilgal Shvu. You can roll the oath over. That means you extend it to other things. Kesem Minolan, how do you know that money is an acquisition for land. Amar Chizkiah says, Amar Krat says in the pasuk Sadis because of Yiknu, says you'll buy fields with money. It's referring to Yirmiyahu Navi is telling the people that don't worry, you're going into exile. It's only going to be 70 years. You're going to come back and you're going to be able to buy fields. How are you going to buy the fields? With money. See, Yirmiyahu Navi says money acquires fields. If you read the pasuk further, it says that you're going to write a document. Maybe it means that you have to give a document too. It says you write in a document and you'll sign it, you'll seal it. If would say you acquire it after it says the document, then that would be correct. That it would be the document would be the acquisition. But now that it says and only afterwards you write the document, yiknu means acquisition. So then, Kesef Kani Shtar Raya Balmo, the document was just to prove that you have it, but that's not the acquisition. It's just the receipt.
So Maras and Machpelah wasn't considered as part of the Soda? Because we use Lashon Kach and we use money.
Yeah, so over there it tells us that money was the Kenyan.
So why do we use that? That's Midarai, why do we go to Nevi'im?
Taisvus asks your question. Dr. Stein asked Taisvus' question. Dr. Stein and Taisvus ask.
I didn't look at this.
That why doesn't he bring the pasuk by Ephraim? By that he bought it with money. So Taisvus says because that was from a non-Jew. From a non-Jew we know that money works. The question is from a Jew. Amar Rav says, this only applies to places where you don't write a document, but places where you write a document, you not acquire it until you do the document. The parish, but if he says clearly, I want to use money, then parish, then he explained, he specified, and then money would work. As you can use money, but in places where you use documents, then that's what's going to acquire. Just like Ravidi Baravin, Kizavinara, when he would buy a land, Amar, he says, if I want, I'm buying it with money. And he gave the money already. He's waiting for the document. And if I want, I'm buying it with the document. Now, what does that mean? If the seller tries to retract, he says, what do you mean? I bought it with the money. I gave you the money already. But if he wants to retract, he says, look, I never got the document yet, so I'm backing out. That's why he always had that loophole. Yeah, so he gave those two. It's interesting. But which one is it? Bishtar, we tried to buy an apartment here in Miami, and the person, the seller, wanted to see if they would get a higher offer. So on the contract, they didn't sign one of the places. And, we overlooked it. And then they backed out because they got a higher offer. And they said, oh, we didn't sign one place. And this was just a trick. It was a scam. Like they did that. Anyway. So, Bishtar Minalan, how do you know? Let's leave it over here. Let's leave it by Shtar. Okay.
Okay, how
Have a
far are
good
we
Shabbos.
behind?
Page and a half. Half a daf.
We can never start early on Sunday.
Good Shabbos.
Ready instead of 6 to catch up because you didn't do anything last
Right.
night.
Good Shabbos.
Have a good Shabbos. A safe flight.
Shabbos.
Safe flight.
Thank you.
Shabbos, Moshe.
Shabbos.
That doesn't work.
Shabbos.
Yes.